that's another thing. Where as soon as I turn my lights on, someone zooms out and asks, and I gotta turn, a quarter mile down the road. They just
They
can't
can't take it. God, get over it.
I noticed there was a passing zone, I'm like, how can it be that?
Okay, 7 o'clock, call meeting to order, please stand for the pledge. There you go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I would ask that we had 2 items that came to my attention today in the agenda. And we number, the first one, number 16, which is a seminar for the assessor in Lockport, New York, at a cost of $50. And a new number 17, that would be for a replacement door on the Main Street side of Town Hall for $1,647.96. And then we renumber number 16, number 18, number 17, number 19, and adjourn at number 20.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Move on to public comment. Anybody online, Dave?
Nope.
Okay. Communications. We should start out with the town clerk or the deputy town clerk in this situation.
We have nothing.
Okay. Town attorney
I had nothing.
and Karen,
I have nothing.
Cindy.
The only couple of things I have, first is the Military Memorial Committee will be meeting tomorrow night. We did not meet on the 22nd of June because of the primary. So we will be meeting tomorrow night and hopefully finalizing our plans and scheduling a presentation to the board on the 13th of August. And then the only other thing I'd like to bring up is a situation on where Mendon Shire comes into Route 64. It is a passing lane heading south, and it's extremely dangerous. I've had 2 neighbors talk to me about it, 3 different situations. One neighbor it happened twice, and then the other neighbor once. Whether you're turning right out of there and somebody's passing, heading south, and then 2 separate situations where somebody was heading left into Mendon Shire, going south, turning out of Mendon Shire, going north, and somebody was in the passing. Did I say that right?
Sure.
Okay. And it's just very, I know since I've lived there over 30 years, it has been a concern constantly. These 3 situations that happened in the last, I'm gonna say 3 months.
So who do we go to, DOT or sheriff's or?
DOT. We wrote them, I'm thinking it was probably 4 or 5 years ago.
I would say
Probably less. But
Less.
3 to 4 years ago. I know Bud had helped work with me to get that letter written.
Send it again.
And their response was, well, there's a May accident there. So.
Right. And then, Tom, you said you've,
Yeah, I have a stop coming out of Mendon Shire. I go left out of Mendon Shire, and I have the first house to the right. And that single stop, I've had more people run through my red lights. I mean, 3 or 4 people maybe. And it's just, I mean, people are going 75 down, 64. That's the thing. They come over the hill. Yeah. So, yeah, I know Bill sent a letter. I probably can find it and change the date and resend it.
Yeah, we can get like something from Bill and we had something and, I don't know if we could get any cooperation out of the county.
Well, we put our new sign out there when we get our new digital sign.
Oh, yeah, well, I haven't really received that response. Oh, the one that Andy has, yeah, we can put that out for speed.
Yeah. for
Well, it's
speed.
on a state road.
Who cares? Make them come and take it down.
Don't do it during school years. I hate being caught on my bus.
I believe they
People
would.
are
No, I
blowing
don't
crazy.
Well, what happens is on 64, once you get just south of Fountain Hill, it changes to a dotted line.
Yeah,
So that southbound traffic can pass. Prior to that, it's a double line, and I think people get over anxious and they go, and somebody on Mendonshire, somebody's gonna
yeah,
get.
I mean, there's a sweeping turn coming in from, what would be if you're leaving, what would be your right.
Yeah,
And, I mean, if you check, you go back, there may be a car,
right.
where it's not safe. That's pretty tough.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tom?
Nothing. We did not have an ECB meeting this month, and we took the planning board.
Jen?
Nothing.
A couple items. First of all, summer rec is proceeding. You probably saw, I forwarded some information from the person, I believe it's director, is the proper term for the summer rec program, that gave some details and some of the activities that they have. Seems like things are coming right along. I also sent you the email about the ARPA money. It's been, $655,680. It's two what they call troughs, one that should be here before the end of August, another one that should be here a year from now. And they have some very, some parameters that money can be spent on, so we'll continue to monitor those parameters and see how they fit into any projects that we have. The RFP went out for two new speed monitors that we talked about last month. The flag deposit project, that's the Eagle Scout project here. We've mapped out an area here at the back of the parking lot for it. Take a look at it, leave. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know. Otherwise, we're planning on going with that. Kelly and I did a webinar on budgeting. Monroe County Council of Governments had a Zoom meeting. I participated in that. We've been doing some preliminary work on the 2022 budget. That'll heat up later this week and for the next couple of weeks. Phones were out this morning. We had this problem maybe a couple of weeks ago, Bonnie, where they were out.
3 or 4.
3 or 4 weeks ago. And all of us, I was doing an online chat thing with somebody from Frontier, because when I call them, sometimes I don't necessarily get someone who English is their first language. So I went through 3 different people on a chat over an hour online, with me giving them our account number, our phone number, our address, my name, our PIN number, each one of those things to all 3 people. And finally, the last person I talked to said, "Oh, call this number." So I called that number, I actually got a live person, and they, all of a sudden, an hour or so later, the phones came on. Then the phones went back off again later in the day, and then a guy from Frontier showed up. So they're apparently coming back tomorrow with help, I think was this.
What do you consider switching to Spectrum?
Well, it's a possibility, but I'll tell you that little phone project was quite an interesting one that we had. And one of the reasons we did go is that, if we lose Spectrum, then we don't have phones or internet. Where if we lose Frontier, normally we still have internet, which we did from Spectrum today. But that's kind of one of the reasons why we went with 2 different people, because we were kind of concerned that if one went out, we'd be really handcuffed. But yeah, if this keeps up, this has been bad. I don't know what's causing it.
It's a nice morning.
It was quiet, wasn't it? I also attended the planning.
Bonnie's doing it.
I also attended the planning board meeting on Wednesday, where there was a discussion about a couple of applications. And everything seemed to be going okay. There were some concerns about a couple of applications that have already been approved that concludes my communications. Supervisor's monthly report.
Make a motion to approve supervisor's monthly report for June 2021.
I'll second.
Any discussion? You can see we received 81% of our revenue and expended 45% of our expenses for the first 6 months of the year, which is pretty good. Although, you know, when the taxes come in January, that's the majority of, or, you know, not the majority, but it's a substantial amount of our revenue. So it's not surprising that we're at that level. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, town clerk's monthly report.
Dog license.
The renewals.
I make a motion to acknowledge the receipt of supervisor, or I'm sorry, town clerk's monthly report for June 2020.
Second.
Any discussion?
What a building.
As you can see, 25 building permits.
That's amazing.
Now,
That's great.
that could be anything from a shed to a pool, doesn't necessarily mean it's a 3-bedroom colonial.
Or we've had a lot of fences too.
Fences.
I think people coming out of their houses and starting to see people.
Same for their neighbors.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Move on, minutes, we don't have any minutes for tonight, so we'll move on to number 9, budget adjustments and transfers.
Make a motion to approve the budget adjustments as noted in our agenda.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
So you're preparing for the Dreesbach field improvements, the garage improvements, what were they slated for?
We were talking about solar about a year ago, and between the ability to get parts right now and the fact that there isn't any real grant money available for any kind of solar for municipal, we kind of put that on the back burner.
And John, what is the planning board, the money going to the planning board from the planning projects?
Planning board members get paid per meeting, and they've been meeting a lot.
Oh.
So what we budgeted was a little, you know, because, you know, when we were budgeting for the COVID, we were like, you know, it's hard to figure out how many meetings they were gonna have, whether they were gonna be in person, et cetera. So they've had numerous meetings.
They have, yes.
Pretty much twice a month.
which is-
John, what's the staff?
It's coming from staff at 15 Monroe, that's the youth center,
Oh, okay.
and going to community beautification supplies.
Okay.
You know, it's just a little buffer in that line because we're running pretty short on that, because we've done a lot with community beautification this year.
Sure.
Just give us a little buffer in case we need to replace something or fix something.
But I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we have vouchers.
I'll make a motion to approve all claims on vouchers number 21-435 to 21-518. General abstract 21-07 in the amount of $170,871.39.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? If you look through there, you see that 109,000 went to Sutco. So a lot of that went for oil for the stone and oil rating. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Library vouchers number 21-079 to 21-090 on library abstract 21-07 in the amount of $1,576.42 presented to the town board.
Thank you. We'll move on to proposed local law to amend section 16.1, PUD, Planned Unit Development District, chapter 260 in zoning of the town code. This is a public hearing. So I'm going to open up the public hearing at 7:15 p.m. Anyone who would like to comment on this, we would ask your name, address, and the local law. Everybody up here has a copy of the local law. The local law was both advertised on our website and in our official newspaper. Chuck, anything?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Chuck Ryan, 60 Office Parkway in Pittsburgh, 14534. We saw the local law, and John and I have had some communication, and Mr. Boyce, I believe, has had some communication with our lawyers. We did run it by our lawyers, and naturally, they look at the worst case scenario, and they aren't totally comfortable with the proposed local law as it stands now, that it protects our interests sufficiently without substitute language and or an amendment to the language that specifically exempts Meadow Green from the PUD repeal. So instead of writing letters to attorneys and us to the board, I wanted to come myself and see if we can work this out together tonight, which I hopefully I don't think is a major thing. I guess the question we have, I guess I'd have to address it to Mr. Boyce. So the language as it stands now says section 16.1, PUD, Planned Unit Development District of Chapter 260 zoning of the Mendon Town Code is hereby repealed. Next sentence is this repeal will not affect any pending application for PUD approval. My question is, was that second sentence put in for amended green parcels?
It was.
Okay.
Yes, it was. As I explained to Mr. Goldman, it was put in to make it specifically clear that this will have no effect on the amending green application.
Okay, great. Is it possible, could we suggest some additional language in that, just to make it a little clearer? We were going to suggest that you table this vote tonight. We did come up with some additional wording that I'd be happy to hand out for the board to consider. I know that would involve re-advertising the public hearing and re-advertising the proposed local law, but is there really a rush to do this on the town's part? We don't see what risk there really is involved in doing that, and tabling it and adding some language that would specifically exempt Mendon Green. Basically, what we were proposing was this repeal will not affect any pending applications for PUD approval, including the PUD zoning and tax parcels, blank, we have the numbers here, commonly known as the Mendon Green property, specifically puts in Mendon Green. We would like to ask the board to please consider tabling the vote tonight and adding this additional language. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Anybody else wish to comment? At this time, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
We didn't take the motion.
No, I asked if there was a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
So
Somebody seconded it.
I
Tom,
already moved it.
Tom moved it and Karen second.
Can you not close it yet? Sorry, I forgot to mention something.
Go for it.
I was just gonna, excuse me, I was just gonna add that, however you vote or however the minutes reflect, if we could make sure that Mr. Boyce's response, yes, exclude Meadow Green, would be in the minutes. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Tom seconds, okay. Any other discussion? Once more. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we have approval of local law to amend section 16.1 PUD Plan Unit Development District, local law number 1 of 2021, repeal of section 16.1 of chapter 260 of the zoning code of town of Mendon. This will not affect any pending applications for PUD approval.
I'll move that.
Second.
So any discussion?
I have some, I mean, so we've been asked to consider the point that the plan or whatever makes concerning, if Meadow Green is not, or Meadow Green is excluded from this, do you have a problem, Sheldon, putting that in there?
Well, they're the only applications pending. So it's up to the board, you know, if you want you'd be amending, you'd be changing the local law, which has already been advertised.
So we can't,
I think it's totally unnecessary, frankly. It's completely unnecessary. It's very clear. They're the only application pending. I don't see any need for them.
and we have in the minutes that you have noted that it's the only PUD, right?
Yeah, but why do yes?
You did one.
I put yes to the answer to Sheldon's,
Got that.
and I pointed out to Jim the request.
So, I guess this comes down to how the board feels. I know I hear Chuck, and I understand he has a vested interest in this property. I know that Sheldon's been a trusted to the board as far as, you know, making sure that we're in solid footing. I think that, you know, I mean, from the outside looking in, not being an attorney or anything, it looks to me like we're carving out a part of the local law to the pending application.
So what's the bigger picture though? So we're gonna remove this PUD law, right? And then we're putting a committee together to put in or research to develop a new PUD law to put back in our code. Because this code, this present PUD is not applicable or effective for our area. Is that?
If anyone here has read the original court case and the appeal decision, you will realize how the current PUD ordinance, I think the legal term is it's a mess. And if you look at it, it needs to be rewritten. A lot of the problems from that litigation came from, well, all of the problems from that litigation came from the way this is drafted. And it really needs to be rewritten.
Even Monroe County Planning came back with a letter that said, well, if you say it's a PUD, but it's not a PUD. And you know, I have, thank goodness, haven't had to read much of this in the last month or so, but when I have read up on PUDs and I've looked at other towns, you know, it's meant to be like what you see on Assembly Drive. It's supposed to be
Correct.
various types of homes, businesses, offices, that type of thing. Almost like a little community within a community. And if you read our PUD ordinance, it's really nothing more than a subdivision as far as I'm concerned. Sheldon, you feel free to correct me if I'm
Well,
wrong.
the way it's been applied is it's really just high density subdivision.
Mhm.
And that's not the intention of PUD. So, and then there's other, the intricacies of the ordinance itself, the whole thing needs rewriting.
So, in my opinion, if upon reflection, upon, you know, judges looking at it and saying it was written poorly, you know, there is this one project that it falls underneath. I don't see why we need to make it any broader than it really is right now. I mean, there's one project that falls under it. It almost sounds like you want the property to be grandfathered into it as opposed to this project. Is that, I mean, because when I see that tax ID number, that's what jumps out in my mind, is that you want anything that ever uses that tax ID number to be used in what we all kind of see as a badly written PUD.
So I think what you're saying, Tom, is if for some reason it changes hands before anything is built, then if a tax account number is attached to it, then the
Exemption will stay in place.
The exemption.
Yes, that's what it sounds like.
That's, thank you, Chad. Couldn't come up with a word.
But if it's the opinion of our attorney and the opinion of, you know, people on the board that it was poorly written, and this is the remedy, then why have it propagate to anything?
All right, so in the future, so would a Mendon Green have any application? They'll have an application, they'll have the PUD, but the reality is their application doesn't fit a PUD anymore, right? Because they're not ever gonna put, you know, a 7-Eleven on the front of that entry into 60, off of 64, anything like that. They're not gonna have mixed use.
It's currently approved back in 2005.
Right.
So there's no, that's water over the dam. That plan has been approved, and it can be constructed. The next step would be to just go to the planning board. But this town board has approved that rezoning,
Right.
so that much is clear. And that's why I say it's not gonna affect Mendon Green.
I mean, in your scenario, Jen, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sheldon, but I think that would require to amend the application
Right, okay, that makes sense, right?
before the planning board. Which the planning board did approve the 54. So that's where it stands right now.
So it seems like this is a remedy to what was a mistake in the past. Again, we live by that mistake and a development was approved under it, so we will stand by that, which we kind of don't have an opinion on, or we don't have to say it. But my point is, why say, oh, well, you know, if something else comes, that parcel is sold or whatever, why continue to propagate that mistake?
Agreed. I agree with that.
Right, any other discussion? So at this point, we are voting, I just want to clarify this with everybody because this is a little confusing at times. We're voting to repeal the PUD section and have it not affect any pending applications. And there's only one, and that's the one Chuck referred to. And anybody need any further explanation or questions or anything like that?
We're voting to repeal the old law.
Yes.
Got it.
That doesn't affect Mendon Green.
Yep. Okay.
Any questions, concerns? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next is number 13, which is to revise the 284 agreement. This is summer work on town roads.
Make a motion to amend 284 agreement, lead work on Lang Tap Road and add further work than is noted in our. And not to exceed the sum of $15,637 for materials.
I'll second.
So, Andy, you can explain this better than I can.
So the caterpillars that we've all seen eating all the trees, took all the leaves off the trees, and up through the lane path, all over trees. They wiped them out, so what goes in comes out and it was all over the road and the oil wouldn't stick to it. So we would just end up plowing it off or it won't stick to what the caterpillars had left behind. It was pretty bad up through there. I mean, they're actually starting to come back, but so there's no sense in putting it down, plowing it off and having to do it again. To me, it was just a waste of money and oil and
Is that something that you would put on for next year then?
yeah, probably
Yeah,
put on
wait
next
for
year. And
next
then
year to do that.
what we did is Chamberlain Road, where all the water, where they did the water main repairs and everything. We're gonna do a double surface treat, so 3/8 first and then 1/8 over that. And that road should be pretty good for the next 6-8 years. So hopefully let all those water repairs settle and go from.
I'm glad you're using 1/8 stone. I have no idea what 1/8
So is what the caterpillars left behind, is that just weather away?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll go
It'll
away.
just probably wash away there. I think they're done. They're all flying around now, so they're moths
Right.
now, or
Yeah.
they're butterflies or whatever they are now, but I just didn't wanna put all that oil on there. Man, it's
That's a very good call.
$4 a gallon.
So the 284 agreement is an agreement that we had at our organizational meeting in January with the highway superintendent, what roads he's gonna do and how much they're gonna cost. So to amend that, it does require town board action because it is an agreement that we have to follow and I think we got a motion in a second. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, number 14 is Mendon Green Sketch Plan.
Got some background on that, Mr. Supervisor.
Sure, do you want to move and second it first?
Sure.
So moved.
Second.
I'll let Sheldon give you the
So
background.
this is-
It's a little
We
confusing.
file this under unfinished business. Because what happened was, and the sketch plan being referred to here is the 90-some homes that we had all the litigation over. And what happened, how we got there was, it required a new sewer agreement. And what we did, actually, to try to get to the meat of it, was have an up or down vote on the sewer agreement. Because without the sewer agreement, you don't have to consider the sketch plan. And the sewer agreement, of course, was voted down, was not approved. And then through the litigation, what happened was, the litigation is over, including the appeal, but this is kind of a loose end. But we never voted on the sketch plan of the 90-some homes. So this needs to be voted on. Both the original decision and the appeal noted that the town still has a right to make a decision on that sketch plan. We had not gotten to that point because there was no sewer contract to support the 90-some homes. So this is just to have the town board have an up or down vote on the amended sketch plan, on the 90-some home sketch plan.
Anybody have any questions about this? Because it's a little confusing.
So if I vote for this, what does that mean?
If you vote for that, then you're voting for a sketch plan that doesn't have a sewer agreement to support it.
For 90-some, I forgot. what
For
it is.
90-some homes, that's the one we're talking about. Again, the 50-some homes, that's a done deal. But this, again, was just an unfinished business on the sketch plan, the new sketch plan for the much larger development.
Everybody good?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
In number 1, where it says notwithstanding, second line down, notwithstanding the absence of a, should they say contract, not contact?
Yes,
Okay.
that's,
My bad.
so what we would do, I mean, since there is no sort of contract to support it, I know it's phrased in the positive, but you would vote it down unless you wanted to say, well, we don't care about the sewer agreement. Same thing was the sewer agreement. I phrased the resolution in the positive, but then it was voted down 5-0.
Everybody clear?
Uh,
Okay. Oh, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just gonna read it one more time. So a yes vote on this would basically clean up what we refer to as loose ends.
A no vote.
No
No vote, okay. Sorry, it's to clarify.
No, it's,
It is confusing.
it is confusing and
Should have called the vote, John, before you show.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Aye. Or nay? I guess it's the
Nay.
proper thing to say. I guess I voted against.
I get the account.
Okay.
How many ayes?
4.
John?
John, what? Oh,
Okay, and the rest,
eyes, I'm sorry. Just wishful thinking.
thank you.
Number 15 is Lavelle Engineers. This is Splash Park Statement of Services.
Make a motion to enter into an agreement for a full scope of services for design, bidding, construction, administration, and for a splash park construction not to exceed $88,000 from account A77120.
So this, once again, is what we talked about is pursuing a splash park. We talked about the fact that we would have to go out to bid. John and I have had numerous meetings with everything from contractors to the folks at Labella, and they worked on this proposal for us to enter an agreement for their services. Monroe County has recently changed their parameters. We're gonna find out more about that tomorrow, but they're gonna require a full-service restroom. Currently, what we have there right now is basically what I refer to as a two-old outhouse. This would require a septic tank, leach field, full restroom. So as you can tell, that is gonna require further funding. Should we decide to go forward. But this is step one, so to speak, in trying to make that decision. Any other questions or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. New number 16 is to approve the assessor for a seminar in Lockport on Thursday, July 29th, at a cost of $50.
We're sending them to a winery, I think.
Yes.
Talk about orchards and vineyards.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next one is a replacement door for the town hall at 16 West Main Street. This is materials only for amount not to exceed $1,647.86 out of account number A1620.411. Bonnie, I can fill you in on some of this tomorrow. This, once again, we had to have 3 quotes. Corey's had 2 for probably close to a month. We finally got the 3rd one. 84 lumber meets all the requirements of the quote, and is would if you've been in and out of that door on the Main Street side, you know it's in rough condition.
It's like a metal door now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would simulate the door on the other side of the building, and it would hopefully open and close properly, and make it so it's handicapped accessible. Right now, there's I don't know what to call it, bump in the road, so to speak, as you come in there. And it would preserve the mailbox, which is very concerned with Mr. Gursky's.
So this is the one right off the parking lot.
Now,
No,
Or
it's
the one
on Main
front,
Main Street.
Right on the front, okay.
So
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That we'll move on to number 18, which is for executive session regarding a personnel matter. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
CC.
Stop recording.
Yes, please. And we do have,
Okay, thank you. I was just asking Danny, if Mr. Mersey is still the town clerk, correct?
that is correct.
Okay. I emailed him today asking for him to send me the official zoning map. I didn't hear back from him. Because in section 260-10 of the town code says there should be only one official zoning map, which shall be kept in the office of town clerk and shall bear certification, blah, blah, blah. To be a material suitable for reproduction. So, John, you and I have talked, there's a zoning map on the website, and that shows the Mendon Green site PUD. There's a zoning map on page 186, the last page of the comprehensive plan, which shows a 5 acre. And you kindly said that was a mistake and that had to be changed.
Well, I think it was in the middle of the whole litigation.
Right.
So that, we weren't really sure what it was zoned at.
No, I understand.
At various points, I think.
Yeah, you explained that. But if I read this right, the one official zoning map is in Mr. Mersey's office.
Yes.
So we'd like to see what that shows, unless you know.
I was about to start completing that test when the phone system went out today. So it's really my fault that you didn't get it today, but I will, because Mr. Mersey came to me and told me about that and asked me about it, and that's right about the time the wheels came off. So I will follow up on that tomorrow.
Okay, appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Do we have an official?
Yes, we do.
Do you know what it shows for the Mendon Green parcels now?
I assume, and I probably, you're always in trouble when you assume something. I assume the one on the website is correct, but I don't know when that was updated and who updated
There's
it.
one on the website, it cites three local, it says, 3 local laws, like from 2005, 2007, 2007. I don't think any of those were for Mendon Green, but Mendon Green is shown
Sure.
as PUD. But looking at the code, it sounds like technically there was the one in the town clerk's office, which is the one official map. So if that's possible to.
I also want to clarify it with Mr. Boyce as to whether, the map is accurate after all the
Sure.
renditions we've had, I guess I'll call it. Over.
Yeah, it's now zone PUD, yes, and
Pardon
it is now zone PUD because this is where the dust is settled after all these years, but it may be, as John said, it was in a state of flux when we were in
Yeah,
litigation.
I understand
But it's clearly now the map should reflect its PUD.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
The last page of the comprehensive plan is entitled zoning map, not a land use map. So I guess all of them should
They should match,
agree.
right? Oh, no, I agree. It should match.
Okay, that's it for me tonight. Thanks for your time.
Thank
No
you.
problem,
Thank
John.
you.
Thanks for coming out. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
So,